French Polynesia is an overseas collectivity of the French Republic and its sole overseas country. It is composed of 118 geographically dispersed islands and atolls stretching over an expanse of more than in the South Pacific Ocean. Its total land area is. French Polynesia is divided into 5 groups of islands: the Society Islands Archipelago, composed of the Windward Islands and the Leeward Islands; the Tuamotu Archipelago, the Gambier Islands, the Marquesas Islands, and the Austral Islands. Among its 118 islands and atolls, 67 are inhabited. Tahiti, which is located within the Society Islands, is the most populous island, having close to 69% of the population of French Polynesia. Papeete, located on Tahiti, is the capital. Although not an integral part of its territory, Clipperton Island was administered from French Polynesia until 2007. Following the Great Polynesian Migration, European explorers visited the islands of French Polynesia on several occasions. Traders and whaling ships also visited. In 1842, the French took over the islands and established a French protectorate they called French establishments, settlements of Oceania. In 1946, they became an overseas territory under the Constitution of the French Fourth Republic, and Polynesians were granted the right to vote through citizenship. In 1957, they were renamed French Polynesia. In 1983, French Polynesia became a member of the Pacific Community, a regional development organization. Since the 28th of March 2003, French Polynesia has been an overseas collectivity of the French Republic under the constitutional revision of Article 74, and later gained, with Law 2004-192 of the 27th of February 2004, an administrative autonomy, 2 symbolic manifestations of which are the title of the President of French Polynesia and its additional designation as an overseas country.
History.
Scientists believe the Great Polynesian Migration commenced around 1500 BC as Austronesian peoples went on a journey using celestial navigation to find islands in the South Pacific Ocean. The first islands of French Polynesia to be settled were the Marquesas Islands in about 200 BC. The Polynesians later ventured southwest and discovered the Society Islands around AD 300. European encounters began in 1521 when Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan, sailing at the service of the Spanish crown, sighted Puka Puka in the Tuamotu Gambier Archipelago. In 1606 another Spanish expedition under Pedro Fernandez de Queiroz sailed through Polynesia, sighting an inhabited island on 10 February which they called Sagittaria or Sagittaria, probably the island of Rika Rika to the southeast of Tahiti. In 1722, Dutchman Jacob Royveen, while on an expedition sponsored by the Dutch West India Company, charted the location of 6 islands in the Tuamotu Archipelago and 2 islands in the Society Islands, one of which was Bora Bora. British explorer Samuel Wallis became the first European navigator to visit Tahiti in 1767. French explorer Louis-Antoine de Bougainville also visited Tahiti in 1768. While British explorer James Cook arrived in 1769. A short-lived Spanish settlement was created in 1774. Christian missions began with Spanish priests who stayed in Tahiti for a year. Protestants from the London Missionary Society settled permanently in Polynesia in 1797. King Pomer II of Tahiti was forced to flee to Moorea in 1803. He and his subjects were converted to Protestantism in 1812. French Catholic missionaries arrived on Tahiti in 1834. Their expulsion in 1836 caused France to send a gunboat in 1838. In 1842, Tahiti and Tuamotu were declared a French protectorate, to allow Catholic missionaries to work undisturbed. The capital of Papeete was founded in 1843. In 1880, France annexed Tahiti, changing the status from that of a protectorate to that of a colony. The island groups were not officially united until the establishment of the French protectorate in 1889. After France declared a protectorate over Tahiti in 1840, the British and French signed the Jarnac Convention in 1847, declaring that the kingdoms of Raiatea, Huahine and Bora Bora were to remain independent from either powers and that no single chief was to be allowed to reign over the entire archipelago. France eventually broke the agreement, and the islands were annexed and became a colony in 1888, 8 years after the Windward Islands, after many native resistances and conflicts called the Leeward's War, lasting until 1897. In the 1880s, France claimed the Tuamotu archipelago, which formerly belonged to the Pomare dynasty, without formally annexing it. Having declared a protectorate over Tuatu in 1842, the French regarded the entire Marquesas Islands as French. In 1885, France appointed a governor and established a general council, thus giving it the proper administration for a colony. The islands of Rimatara and Rurutu unsuccessfully lobbied for British protection in 1888. So in 1889 they were annexed by France. Postage stamps were first issued in the colony in 1892. The first official name for the colony was Établissements de l'Océanie, establishments in Oceania. In 1903 the General Council was changed to an Advisory Council and the colonist name was changed to Établissements Français de l'Océanie, French establishments in Oceania. In 1940, the administration of French Polynesia recognized the Free French forces and many Polynesians served in World War II. Unknown at the time to the French and Polynesians, the Kono cabinet in Imperial Japan on the 16th of September 1940 included French Polynesia among the many territories which were to become Japanese possessions, as part of the Eastern Pacific Government General in the post-war world. However, in the course of the war in the Pacific the Japanese were not able to launch an actual invasion of the French islands. In 1946, Polynesians were granted French citizenship and the island's status was changed to an overseas territory. The island's name was changed in 1957 to Polynésie Française, French Polynesia. In 1962, France's early nuclear testing ground of Algeria became independent and the Moruro Atoll in the Tuamotu archipelago was selected as the new testing site. Tests were conducted underground after 1974. In 1977, French Polynesia was granted partial internal autonomy. In 1984, the autonomy was extended. French Polynesia became a full overseas collectivity of France in 2003. In September 1995, France stirred up widespread protests by resuming nuclear testing at Fangatofu Atoll after a 3-year moratorium. The last test was on the 27th of January 1996. On the 29th of January 1996, France announced that it would accede to the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty and no longer test nuclear weapons. French Polynesia was relisted in the UN list of non-self-governing territories in 2013, making it eligible for a UN-backed independence referendum. The relisting was made after the indigenous opposition was voiced and supported by the Polynesian Leaders Group, Pacific Conference of Churches, Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, Non-Aligned Movement, World Council of Churches, and Melanesian Spearhead Group.
Governance.
Under the terms of Article 74 of the French Constitution and the Organic Law 2014-192 on the Statute of Autonomy of French Polynesia, politics of French Polynesia takes place in a framework of a parliamentary representative democratic French overseas collectivity, whereby the President of French Polynesia is the head of government, and of a multi-party system. Executive power is exercised by the government. Legislative power is vested in both the government and the Assembly of French Polynesia, the Territorial Assembly. Political life in French Polynesia has been marked by great instability since the mid-2000s. On the 14th of September 2007, the pro-independence leader Oscar Timaru was elected President of French Polynesia for the third time in 3 years with 27 of 44 votes cast in the Territorial Assembly. He replaced former President Gaston Tong-Sang, opposed to independence, who lost a no-confidence vote in the Assembly of French Polynesia on 31 August after the long-time former President of French Polynesia, Gaston Floss, hitherto opposed to independence, sided with his long enemy Oscar Timaru to topple the government of Gaston Tong-Sang. Oscar Timaru, however, had no stable majority in the Assembly of French Polynesia, and new territorial elections were held in February 2008 to solve the political crisis. The party of Gaston Tong-sang won the territorial elections. But that did not solve the political crisis. The two minority parties of Oscar Timaru and Gaston Floss, who together have one more member in the Territorial Assembly than the political party of Gaston Tong-sang, allied to prevent Gaston Tong-sang from becoming president of French Polynesia. Gaston Floss was then elected president of French Polynesia by the Territorial Assembly on the 23rd of February 2008 with the support of the pro-independence party led by Oscar Timaru, while Oscar Timaru was elected Speaker of the Territorial Assembly with the support of the anti-independence party led by Gaston Floss. Both formed a coalition cabinet. Many observers doubted that the alliance between the anti-independence Gaston Floss and the pro-independence Oscar Timaru, designed to prevent Gaston Tong-sang from becoming president of French Polynesia, could last very long. At the French municipal elections held in March 2008, several prominent mayors who are member of the Floss-Timaru coalition lost their offices in key municipalities of French Polynesia, which was interpreted as a disapproval of the way Gaston Tong-sang, whose party French Polynesian voters had placed first in the territorial elections the month before, had been prevented from becoming president of French Polynesia by the last-minute alliance between Floss and Timaru's parties. Eventually, on the 15th of April 2008 the government of Gaston Floss was toppled by a constructive vote of no confidence in the Territorial Assembly when two members of the Floss-Timaru coalition left the coalition and sided with Tong-sang's party. Gaston Tong-sang was elected president of French Polynesia as a result of this constructive vote of no confidence. But his majority in the Territorial Assembly is very narrow. He offered posts in his cabinet to Floss and Timaru's parties which they both refused. Gaston Tong-sang has called all parties to help end the instability in local politics, a prerequisite to attract foreign investors needed to develop the local economy.
Administration.
Between 1946 and 2003, French Polynesia had the status of an overseas territory, or TOM. In 2003, it became an overseas collectivity, or COM. Its statutory law of the 27th of February 2004 gives it the particular designation of overseas country inside the Republic, or POM, but without legal modification of its status.
Relations with mainland France.
Despite a local assembly and government, French Polynesia is not in a free association with France, like the Cook Islands with New Zealand. As a French overseas collectivity, the local government has no competence in justice, university education, security and defense. Services in these areas are directly provided and administered by the government of France, including the National Gendarmerie, which also polices rural and border areas in metropolitan France, and French military forces. The collectivity government retains control over primary and secondary education, health, town planning, and the environment. The highest representative of the state in the territory is the High Commissioner of the Republic in French Polynesia. French Polynesia also sends 3 deputies to the French National Assembly, one representing the Leeward Islands Administrative Subdivision and the southwestern suburbs of Papeete, another one representing Papeete and its northeastern suburbs, plus the commune municipality of Morea Mayao, the Tuamotu Gambia Administrative Division, and the Marquesas Islands Administrative Division, and the last one representing the rest of Tahiti and the Austral Islands Administrative Subdivision. French Polynesia also sends 2 senators to the French Senate. French Polynesians vote in the French presidential elections. In the 2007 French presidential election, in which the pro-independence leader Oscar Timaru openly called to vote for the socialist candidate Ségolène Royal, while the parties opposed to independence generally supported the centre-right candidate Nicolas Sarkozy, the turnout in French Polynesia was 69.12% in the first round of the election and 74.67% in the second round, both in favour of Sarkozy as compared to metropolitan France in the second round, Nicolas Sarkozy 51.9%, Ségolène Royal 48.1%.
Geography.
The islands of French Polynesia make up a total land area of, scattered over more than of ocean. There are 118 islands in French Polynesia and many more islets or motus around atolls. The highest point is Mount Honor on Tahiti. It is made up of 6 archipelagos. The largest and most populated island is Tahiti, in the Society Islands. The archipelagos are Kiss Marquesas Islands, administratively making the Marquesas Islands subdivision 12 high islands and 1 atoll, Society Islands, administratively subdivided into the Windward Islands subdivision 5 high islands and the Leeward Islands district 5 atolls, Tuamotu Archipelago, administratively part of the Tuamotu Gambia subdivision 80 atolls, grouping over 3,100 islands or islets. Gambia Islands, administratively part of the Tuamotu Gambia subdivision 2 atolls in Genesis, Austral Islands, administratively part of the Austral Islands subdivision, 5 atolls, Base Islands, administratively part of the Austral Islands subdivision 2 atolls. Aside from Tahiti, some other important atolls, islands, and island groups in French Polynesia are Bora Bora, Hivuo, Huahin, Maiao, Morpiti, Maisha, Morea, Nukuhiva, Raiatea, Tisharoa, Dupuai, and Dupai.
Administrative divisions.
French Polynesia has 5 administrative subdivisions: Kiss Marquesas Islands or officially Leeward Islands or officially the 2 Windward Islands and Leeward Islands are part of the Society Islands. Windward Islands or officially the 2 Windward Islands and Leeward Islands are part of the Society Islands. Tuamotu Gambia or officially the Tuamotus and the Gambia Islands. Austral Islands or officially including the Base Islands.
Demographics.
Total population at the August 2017 census was 275,918 inhabitants. The population of natives of metropolitan France living in French Polynesia has declined in relative terms since the 1980s, but in absolute terms their population peaked at the 2007 census with 24,265 natives of metropolitan France living in French Polynesia that year, not counting their children born in French Polynesia. With the local economic crisis, their population declined to 22,278 at the 2012 census.
Historical population, culture, languages.
French is the only official language of French Polynesia. An organic law of the 12th of April 1996 states that French is the official language. Tahitian and other Polynesian languages can be used. At the 2017 census, among the population whose age was 15 and older, 73.9% of people reported that the language they spoke the most at home was French, up from 68.6% at the 2007 census. 22% reported that the language they spoke the most at home was Tahitian, down from 24.3% at the 2007 census. 2.6% reported Marquesan and 0.2% the related Mangariva language. Same percentages for both at the 2007 census. 1.2% reported any of the Austral languages, down from 1.3% at the 2007 census. 1.0% reported Tuamotian, down from 1.5% at the 2007 census. 0.6% reported a Chinese dialect, 41% of which was Hakka, down from 1.0% at the 2007 census, and 0.4% another language, more than half of which was English, down from 0.5% at the 2007 census. At the same census, 95.2% of people whose age was 15 or older reported that they could speak, read and write French, up from 94.7% at the 2007 census, whereas only 1.3% reported that they had no knowledge of French, down from 2.0% at the 2007 census. It traces its origins to Pomer the king of Tahiti, who converted from traditional beliefs to the reformed tradition brought to the islands by the London Missionary Society. Latin Rite Roman Catholics constitute a large minority with 30% of the population, which has its own ecclesiastical province, comprising the Metropolitan Archdiocese of Papeete and its only suffragan, the Diocese of Tohay. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints had 25,841 members. Community of Christ, another denomination within the Latter-day Saint tradition, claimed 7,990 total French Polynesian members as of 2015, including Meva Arnaud Chong, who serves in the Church's governing council of 12 apostles. There were about 3,000 Jehovah's Witnesses in Tahiti.
Sports. Football.
Football is by far the most popular sport in the country.
VAR.
The Polynesian traditional sport VAR is practiced in all the islands. French Polynesia hosts the international race between Tahiti, Huahine and Bora Bora.
Surfing.
French Polynesia is famous for its reef break waves. Tihupu is probably the most renowned, regularly ranked in the best waves of the world. This site hosts the annual Billabong Pro Tahiti Surf Competition, the 7th stop of the World Championship Tour.
Kite surfing.
There are many spots to practice kitesurfing in French Polynesia, with Tahiti, Moorea, Bora Bora, Morpiti and Reaivavi being among the most iconic.
Diving.
French Polynesia is internationally known for diving. Each archipelago offers opportunities for divers. Ranaroa and Whakarewa in the Tuamotu Islands are the most famous spots in the area.
Rugby.
Rugby is also popular in French Polynesia, specifically rugby union.
Economy and infrastructure.
The legal tender of French Polynesia is the CFP franc, which has a fixed exchange rate with the euro. The nominal gross domestic product or GDP of French Polynesia in 2014 was $5.623 billion US dollars at market local prices, the sixth largest economy in Oceania after Australia, New Zealand, Hawaii, New Caledonia, and Papua New Guinea. The GDP per capita was $20,098 in 2014 at market exchange rates, not at PPP, lower than in Hawaii, Australia, New Zealand, and New Caledonia, but higher than all the independent insular states of Oceania. Both per capita and total figures were significantly lower than those recorded before the financial crisis of 2007-08. In 2008, French Polynesia's imports amounted to $2 billion US dollars and exports amounted to $2 billion US dollars.
Transportation.
There are 53 airports in French Polynesia, 46 are paved. In August 2018, a celebration was held to commemorate the arrival of a submarine cable from Papeete to the atoll of Hao, extending the network by about 1,000 kilometers.
Notable people.
Taina Barrios, born 1988, world champion skier representing France. Billy Besson, Olympic sailor representing France. Michel Bras, born 1985, professional surfer. Cheyenne Brando, 1970 to 1995, model, daughter of Marlon Brando and Terita Teripa. Jacques Brel, 1929 to 1978, Belgian musician who lived in French Polynesia near the end of his life. Jean Gabelou, singer, born 1944, represented France in the 1981 Eurovision Song Contest. Paul Gauguin, 1848 to 1903, French post-impressionist painter who spent the last years of his life in French Polynesia. Vacher Herson Assas, born 1964, actress. Ella Kuhn, born 1979, singer, actress and model. Karina Lombard, born 1969, French-American model and actress. Puvana Opu, 1895 to 1977, politician and Tahitian nationalist. Fabrice Santoro, born 1972, professional tennis player. Terita Teripa, born 1941, actress, third wife of Marlon Brando. Marama Vehairua, born 1980, footballer, cousin of Pascal Vehairua. Pascal Vehairua, born 1966, French former international footballer.